And welcome to another edition of South Texas Now. This is Joe Flores. I'm a nurse practitioner and attorney, as you all know, and we've been running this program for a long time. But one of the things near and dear to my heart, of course, is the law. But to get both sides of the picture, we need to see inside of incarceration, and also we have the distinct pleasure of bringing on our local leader on incarceration, but not only that, public safety and helping people keep out of jail too. So there's going to be a lot of surprises. Hang on to your hat. So welcome, Sheriff. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
A lot of people don't know your whole name. What do you go by? What's your
JC, and that's short for John Christopher. Last name Hooper.
Hooper, and one of my favorite shows when I was a kid. Yeah, Hooper, you heard about it. Well, we were talking before we got on, and we have close ties with the community, and we're blessed to have a family.
Absolutely.
And what'd you do before you became sheriff of Nueces County?
Well, I was with the Corpus Christi Police Department for 35 years.
Yes, sir.
And so I spent 35 years with that agency, serving mostly in Flower Bluff and Padre Island, actually throughout town. Ended up my career with the Corpus Christi Police Department in charge of the Serial Offenders Unit inside of the Criminal Investigation Division with CCPD, and then a short time as a Public Information Officer for Chief Markle. When Mike Markle became chief, he asked me to be his PIO. So I kind of got my feet wet dealing with the media, and during critical incidents and different things that happened where the chief needed to get a message out, I helped him on that.
It's a hard job because
a very necessary job.
It is, because people want answers. Just to catch people up to speed, and I don't date my programs, but there's been a recent police shooting. That they're on administrative leave. Apparently there was some sort of melee or something that happened at a club.
Right.
And it's hit the news, but there's not much on it.
Right.
But in a situation like that, what's the standard protocol when an officer has to discharge his weapon?
Well, and for the most part, it's fairly consistent across all agencies. Of course, there's going to be an immediate investigation, and the officers are typically placed on admin leave to make sure that they're where they need to be, when they come back, they're right in the head, and so and I can't speak for the Corpus Christi Police Department anymore. I don't do that.
Right.
But it's fairly standard that officers be placed on administrative leave after a critical incident like that.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that because a lot of people will say, well, they were put on administrative leave, they must have done something wrong.
Absolutely not. It's for their well-being, and it's for a sense of safety, just a sense that the community is where it needs to be on the issue too, until all the information that can come out comes out. And I know that, again, not to speak for Chief Markle anymore, I don't do that, but I know he is a very open and transparent leader, and I know that agency has a great reputation for sharing information that can be shared as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and during a shooting like that, if they're looking for people of interest, people that are on a video, now with Facebook and, of course, with the, what do you call the policeman's apparatus with the camera and everything?
Oh, yeah, the body cam.
Body cam.
Sure.
Now, there's going to be a lot of video flying around.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how many people the police would have to ask questions of, investigate on something like that. Most people don't want to talk, or maybe they'll go underground. How do you, and I don't want to get too technical or get wrapped in this for the whole session, but how do we ascertain the truth if people don't come forward and say?
And you know what? And you mentioned it. Everybody's got one of these.
Yeah.
And when an incident occurs in a public place, there's going to be all kinds of video footage out there, not just from the environment, like the business cameras, but,
yes, sir.
But also just about everybody has a cell phone, and people do identify themselves inadvertently sometimes on social media, and so there's almost always people to be talked to who didn't surface at the time of the incident. So that's why these investigations take time. There's a process to be followed and respected, and the media frequently, they want everything immediately.
They sure do.
And so many times, and we saw that in Uvalde, it took weeks for an accurate description and a very factual description to come out of what exactly happened up in Uvalde. The early information wasn't even close to right. And so we learned from that. And most law enforcement leaders have learned from that you have to be meticulous and methodical in the investigation, respect the process, and then also with the release of the information, because so much damage can be done if inaccurate, irresponsible information comes out early.
Yes, sir. And our hearts go out to those people in Uvalde. And I remember the actor Matthew McConaughey came out in the White House, making a speech and an announcement about what had happened. But early on, you see somebody with that star power, a lot of the people are going to be swayed by it one way or the other. So the police have a very hard job. Darned if you do, darned if you don't. So transitioning, I think a lot of people out there are asking right now, he did 35 years. I mean, and some of the most serial offenders, toughest guys. What made you run for sheriff?
It's all about service. I mean, I'm a Corpus Christi. Well, I was born in Abilene, and my daddy had to make a choice when I was 1 year old whether to head for Alaska for a teaching opportunity or head to the coast of Texas for a teaching opportunity. And I'm blessed that he chose Corpus Christi, Nueces County. And so for the last 61 years, I've been here.
Wow.
And I love this place and hope to serve in some capacity in this community, in this region, for the rest of my life, as long as I'm able to serve. And so, stepping away from the Corpus Christi Police Department after 35 years, it was not a matter of how was I going to serve, it was where I was going to serve. And when the opportunity presented itself to be the sheriff in Nueces County, that's a dream come true. I mean, that's something. And so there was the previous sheriff retired midterm. And so I was appointed about 4 years ago. I was appointed by the Commissioner's Court. There were like 28 of us that threw our name in the hat to be the sheriff in Nueces County, and open interviews in front of Commissioner's Court. And I was the one that the commissioners chose 4 years ago. And then 2 years ago was my first political election. And that was an experience in itself, countywide election.
Oh, yeah.
And I was able to win that election. So it's a 4-year term, and every sheriff in the state of Texas, all 254 of us, run for office the same year that the President of the United States runs for office. So I've got an election coming up in 2 years.
It is a difficult thing to get commissioners to agree with each other, much less the voters. We've got 200,000 voters. If we're lucky, 80,000 of them will show up, and so you said that was an experience in itself. Let's talk about politics and how that plays with law enforcement and you getting in office. What was your political experience like?
None. I voted. I mean, I voted. I voted all my life, and I continue to vote. And that's when you talk about political experience, that's the most important thing you can do is vote and stay engaged with the community.
Amen.
And so, running a political election with my wife being my campaign manager, that was a challenge in itself, and good for the marriage in the long run, because we spent so much time together, going around putting up signs and talking to different people, traveling the entire county. Living here in Corpus Christi most of my life, I don't know that I've ever been to Agua Dulce or Banquete or Driscoll. or spent that much time there before the election, and that's a good thing. You know, that makes you get out and meet people that you might not have met before. The only time I ever went to Robstown was to watch baseball, because they've always had great baseball in Robstown, right? But then during the political campaign, I was going to a lot more places in Robstown other than the high school baseball field. So it was a great experience.
Well, I'm glad we got a couple of minutes left before the break. I'm glad we've had a good introduction to you. Then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what you want to talk about and educate the public about.
Certainly.
Any last comments about, just you getting up there and your experience? We got about a minute left, and how it's been the last few years.
So it was a learning experience, definitely. There's 4 big things that every sheriff in the state of Texas must deal with, and that is the jail, the workload coming out of district courts, whether it's criminal or civil, courthouse security, and then rural patrol, right? The patrol, when someone calls 911 from an unincorporated area of the county, it's my deputies that answer that call for service. So those are the 4 main issues that every sheriff in the state of Texas has to deal with in their county, and it's all scalable depending on the size and the complexion, the makeup of the county. But anyway, so that was the big learning experience, going from a municipal law enforcement background into that 4-pronged county service that every sheriff does.
Well, we're out of time right now, but you are watching Sheriff Hooper and Nueces County here in Corpus Christi, but not just Corpus, Banquete, Bishop, Agua Dulce, Robstown. Y'all stay tuned out there in Port Aransas too. You know, I know you'll have a few hundred votes, but each one counts. And as the sheriff said, always register to vote and get involved. When we come back, we're going to talk about the meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts of incarceration and the Nueces County Jail. When we come back.